truth.
So have you guys ever wondered why certain religions have this head covering, this small little hat that goes on the crown of your head? And yet there are so many of them. There's the Muslims, there's the Catholics, and then there's Jews. Why is it that they all have this in common? The interesting part is that you will realize that the Bible doesn't mention or endorse men covering their heads at all. And later I'll be sharing that verse with you. But historically speaking, the practice of this comes from Talmudic times. The Talmud is the central text of rabbinic, meaning rabbi, Judaism, and the primary source of Jewish religious law and Jewish theology. During this Talmudic time, it was said that Antiochus Epiphanes, a Seleucid emperor, wanted to make his entire empire conform to the Greek culture. He was obsessed with it, and that was his personal goal. So he did so, but ironically, there was the Maccabean revolt that occurred because of his pushing the Greek culture onto the Jews. Further, during his reign and this Talmudic period, there was a high priest that came on the scene named Jason. He also seemed to be in favor of the worship of all of the Greek gods over anything else. So he instituted sacrifices and offerings and games being played in gymnasiums to the gods. He was the one who introduced the Greek hat. Interestingly enough, though, the ancient depiction of the hat of Hermes, if you remember, is not that different from this Greek hat, except for the fact that it had wings on each side. Further, the article states that it is estimated that the Israelites learned this from the Egyptians, as the Egyptians wore their hair cropped, really short, or shaved with a crown-shaped hat on their heads in the form of a circle surrounding the head. These are called kippahs, and kippahs are what Jewish people wear today. But let's freeze there, because what if, just what if, the wearing of these tiny small hats that go over the crown of your head and usually have several radiating pieces of fabric, they're kind of like sun rays. What if they have to do with sun worship? Because it is kind of symbolizing that you worship the sun. Could it just be that that is something going on here? Here's where we get into the Bible and what the Bible has to say about it. It says in 1 Corinthians 11:7, "For a man indeed ought not to cover his head, for as much as he is the image and glory of Elohim." That is one text. But what about another? This is in Deuteronomy 12, verse 30 and 31, where he says, "Take heed to yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them, after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? I also will do likewise. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. For every abomination to the Lord which he hates, they have done to their gods. For they burn even their sons and daughters in the fire to their gods." This is what would appear to be synchronized pagan worship. Just a little bit of a side note, they usually all have a string of beads as well, aka think the rosary. So why would they all have that? So let's go into this a little bit more here. This is from Egypt Tours portal. It says, in the worship of Cybele, she was a goddess, they had what were galley priests. I've spoken about this in my entire show on androgyny. If you'd like to go watch that, it's very enlightening. But these galley priests were eunuch priests dedicated to the goddess Cybele, known in Rome as Magna Mater. Their rituals involved self-castration as a profound act of devotion. Post-initiation, they donned women's clothing, including yellow robes, and adorned themselves with jewelry, turbans, and heavy makeup. They also wore a type of crown, here we go, possibly laurel wreath, and gold bracelets known as occibus. Their attire and rituals, including ecstatic dances and self-flagellation, were integral to their worship practices. Yes, the practices of shaving the head and wearing specific head coverings, such as small round hats, are historically associated with sun worship and consecration to deities embodying solar attributes. In ancient cultures, including Egypt and the cult of Cybele, these rituals and attire symbolized devotion to the divine. I mentioned Hermes before, so let's take a look at Hermes. Hermeticism, a spiritual and philosophical tradition rooted in the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, a syncretic figure combining elements of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, places significant emphasis on the sun as a central symbol of divine knowledge and illumination. Now, Aleister Crowley was all about Thoth. He had Thoth tarot cards that he sold. He was into it. He wanted to connect with that god. A website called the Digital Ambler states, first of all, the heading is setting up a hermetic shrine. Their information on the fact that wearing one of these hats is important in hermetic practices and rituals comes straight from one of their occult sources on how to actually set up your altar or shrine to one of these gods or Hermes himself. So that's what I have for you guys today. I hope that you liked it. Please like, subscribe, and share this information. I will see you guys next time.
Candid Truth.